I can leave Zoom, can I?
Yeah, I can do it if you'd like to.
Huh?
Yeah, we can end Zoom, we can end Telegram.
Oh, well, we just ended the whole thing. Everyone. And in Telegram?
Yeah, and then, well, usually we end for everybody. We just close it up.
Okay, devotees. Hare Krishna, everyone. We are doing questions and answers, but we only have 7 questions. And most of them are pretty. Take a couple of minutes. So, okay, here we go. Well, first of all, let us chant some of our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestad Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadishtani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakapatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Right, first question. Is it necessary to sit and chant at one particular place? The answer to that really is that it depends on what is best for you, what is the most conducive arrangement for your chanting. Prabhupada generally would sit and chant in one place, but sometimes he would walk around. There's video of Srila Prabhupada walking around chanting japa. Quite a famous video, actually. Personally, I prefer to sit and chant in one particular place now. But when I was a new devotee many years ago, I would never sit and chant. I would always walk around the temple room. I'd always do it. So it just depends what is going to help you focus and concentrate on your chanting with the greatest attentiveness. Number 2, how surrender to Krishna is done. That's interesting. Well, we know at the end of Bhagavad Gita, towards the end, Krishna says we should just surrender to him, and then he'll deliver us from all sinful reactions. So what does it do? What does it mean? Well, you know, this term surrender, the word surrender, comes from a sort of military type background. Something like that. You surrender, in a battle you surrender to the other, to the opposition side, and then you just have to do whatever they say. So Srila Prabhupada chose that term for a particular reason. I mean, whatever Prabhupada did, he always thought it out very carefully. So in relation to ourselves and our relationships with Krishna, surrender means that we give up our independent ideas and we just give ourselves to Krishna. And whatever Krishna wants us to do, we just do without argument, like that. That's the basic idea of surrender, is that you give up your own plan for your own life, and you accept Krishna, and you do what Krishna wants. Of course, it's not so easy to know what Krishna wants, because it's not like he just speaks to us as other people speak to us. But we can know what Krishna wants by asking the spiritual master, or asking the senior devotees. We can understand what Krishna wants. Yes. And then when we've been instructed that Krishna wants you to do this something, then you know just to do that, and don't argue about it, don't debate about it, don't protest. Just try your best to do it as nicely as possible. That's surrender. Now, this is a rather unusual question. How is Radharani different from Krishna? That's a bit of an unusual question, but anyway, okay. Yes, Radharani is part of Krishna. She is Krishna's Chladani potency, means his pleasure potency. She is Krishna's complete capacity, complete ability to enjoy and to be happy and to experience pleasure like that. Yes. So therefore, in that capacity, she's always thinking of how to please Krishna, how to satisfy Krishna, what will make Krishna happy. Wow, we got a real telephone program. Yes, so it's like that. Yeah. She's part of Krishna, his pleasure potency. So she's part of him. But still he is him, he is Krishna. And Radharani's there to give him pleasure. Is it an offense to compare two Vaishnavas? Well, that's an interesting question. To compare two Vaishnavas. Generally what we should do is accept the devotees as they are. That's our general sort of orientation. Bhagavad Gita as it is. Hare Krishna Mahamantra as it is. Devotees as they are. And at least if you understand the qualities of devotees sufficiently, which takes a while to do, but at least if you do understand the devotees sufficiently, then you can appreciate them for what they are. Yes, and that's nice. And generally, devotees have certain particular qualities of their own. Many qualities they share with other devotees, but oftentimes a particular devotee has some quality, some characteristic, some sort of feature of character or nature, which is just theirs, and others don't really have it so much. Now, this may not be relevant to many of you, but we were at Phoenix, New Jagannath Puri earlier today in the middle of the day. And there were many devotees there, but amongst them was Madhu Mangal Prabhu. And you all know Madhu Mangal. You know Madhu Mangal? You know Madhu Mangal from Phoenix? Plays the Wampus heavily in the kirtan. Anyway, okay. So not everybody would know him, but he has particular characteristics of his own. He's just so enthusiastic for kirtan and just so nice. And so it's really nice to associate with him. So, but generally, I mean, maybe not every, but so many devotees, they have certain particular qualities or characteristics of their own. And so it's nice to appreciate devotees. That's really nice, to appreciate this devotee is like this devotee has this characteristic, another devotee has some different characteristics. To appreciate devotees is a very important thing for our progress, actually. But the question is it an offense to compare to Vaishnavas, to devotees? Well, I mean, that's just a simple sounding question, just compare. But it depends on what basis you're making a comparison. If you're trying to make a comparison, who of two devotees is the better devotee, then that would not be so much recommended. So I would, my answer, I think it's a fair answer, is that don't worry too much about comparing devotees, like, is this one better than the other, that sort of idea. But try to appreciate devotees as individuals with their particular personalities in Krishna consciousness and the particular services they do and their attitudes of service. That's nice. Here's an interesting one. Listen to this, ladies. Listen to this, everyone. Is it offensive for ladies to touch spiritual masters' feet? That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah. Generally, I mean, it's a fact that generally physical contact between the genders is not really, I mean, it's definitely not encouraged. Like men sometimes hug other male devotees, and female devotees may hug other female devotees. Am I right? It happens. But for male devotees and female devotees to hug each other generally, as a general practice, like on a regular or daily basis sort of thing, is not done. It's not done. And there's a very good reason for that, is that we all have the tendency to become attracted to the opposite sex. And if there's physical contact, then that will sort of encourage relationships between the sexes, which is not going to be so appropriate. So, I mean, would you agree with that? Yeah, I think so. It's pretty clear. So here, the question is it offensive for ladies to touch spiritual masters' feet? My understanding from quite a bit of discussion with different devotees over the years is that, of course, the spiritual master is one of the devotees. He's not something other than one of the devotees who we're connected with. So therefore the general principle of not touching, ladies not touching the spiritual master's body would be, natural. However, in my experience, particularly on special days, like the spiritual master's Vyasa Puja, in fact, I would say particularly like the spiritual master's Vyasa Puja, when there is the offering of flowers, everyone queues up and, they offer flowers, and many devotees will touch, many men at least, without feeling any, without feeling any embarrassment it's just natural, they'll touch the spiritual master's feet. So for ladies, under such circumstances, they could do that discreetly. Are you familiar with the saying, discretion is the better part of valor? Have you heard that before? You haven't heard that? You heard that? Discretion is the better part of valor. In other words, instead of being sort of wildly courageous, it's more also a military type of thing. On the battlefield, instead of just running into battle, just wildly, you should think, how are we going to approach this battle, and use your discretion, use your intelligence. So, let me at least say I have seen it done. Not a lot, but I've definitely seen it done. That some ladies at least, on the spiritual master's Vyasa Puja, without making, like a public sort of show-off type of display, they may discreetly touch one of the spiritual master's feet. And as long as it's done discreetly, and it's not just like every time, and like it's a common thing, on special occasions to do it in a decent and discreet way is possible. Prabhanu Prabhu told me an interesting thing today, just as we are leaving Phoenix. He told me that, it's related but different form of this situation. He told me that Shamlal Prabhu, who had quite a close relationship with Srila Prabhupada, Shamlal Prabhu had told him this story. The story is that Shamlal Prabhu, it was some situation, I don't think it was a Vyasa Puja, maybe it was like a Guru Puja type of ceremony, like a daily ceremony for worshipping the spiritual master. So, in the course of that, Shamlal Prabhu touched one of Prabhupada's lotus feet. And Srila Prabhupada said to him, I have 2 feet. So then Shamlal Prabhu touched the other foot also. Okay. So we have another, I guess 2 questions on the same verse. Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, verse 7 purport. Srila Prabhupada says in that purport, so spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. So the first question is, what does it mean to be spiritually killed? Well, devotees, it doesn't mean anything actually, because it's not possible. So what Prabhupada is saying is that on the spiritual platform, when the battle took place, and on the material platform, so many people were being killed, and just, whew, my gosh, it was really extreme. Or at least we should say, their bodies were killed. So many. But as spirit souls, because that's what we are, we're all eternal spiritual persons. We're not these bodies are just vehicles. So, yeah. So materially their bodies were definitely killed, but spiritually no one was killed, because it's not possible to kill someone spiritually. The only situation where you may find some sort of idea expressed about a person being spiritually killed, or something like that, is when if people really become very degraded and just absorbed in very heavy sinful activities, very heavy sinful activities, and just, it's really like they become really terrible. Then sometimes it's said, it's not to be taken actually completely literally. It's not to be taken literally. That such a person who's just, incredibly sinful, just drastically sinful, they are kind of spiritually dead, or something along those lines. That idea may occasionally be there, and it may not also. It may not, because the fundamental fact about the soul, the spirit soul, is that the spirit soul cannot be killed. And Srila Prabhupada was asked once that if Krishna wanted, could he kill a spirit soul? If he wanted. And at least we were informed, I was informed, that Srila Prabhupada answered that if he wanted to, he could. But he will never do that. Yes. Just like there's also a question from the late Tribhuvanath Prabhu, who was just a really great devotee, who I knew quite well in England. He asked Prabhupada, will Krishna ever put you, or will he ever give you a test which is just so difficult that you just cannot pass the test? You must fail. There's no way that you could pass the test. And so Tribhuvanath himself told me this personally. And Prabhupada said, no, Krishna will never do that. Now, just a sec, there's a further question on the same Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, verse 7. I don't know if it's the purport or the verse, but in one of the two, the purport or the verse, the term work is used. And the question is asked, does work in this verse mean spiritual duty only, or duty in general? So devotees, I have to now refer to Bhagavad Gita because, this is very specific. This is really specific to that actual. There's chapter 5, verse 7. Okay, it looks like it's talking about the verse itself. Let me just read the Sanskrit. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma kurvan api na lipyate. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Although always working, such a man is never entangled. The question, let's just go back to the question quickly. Question was, does work in this verse mean spiritual duty only or duty in general? Okay, so again, the verse is, one who works in devotion, who's a pure soul and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone and everyone's dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Okay, so, it's very obviously talking about devotional work or devotional service. It's not talking about just an ordinary person's work in the factory. It's not talking about that. But it's talking about a devotee who works in devotion. Yes. And who's very pure and focused, controlling the mind and senses. And even though always working, such a man is never entangled. So essentially, it's talking about work done as a service to Krishna. Now, work done as a service to Krishna includes, for example, the service that devotees do in the temple. What service have you done today?
Me?
You.
Today I didn't do anything. I just attended love feast. I
That's a
tried to
service.
serve a devotee.
You what?
Tried to serve a devotee.
Oh, you tried to serve a devotee. And otherwise you attended the Sunday program here. Right.
Yes.
That's a service. That's a service. Yeah. It's when Prabhupada says, one who works in devotion. It's arguable because it's the 5th chapter. 5th chapter is called Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. So, it's not just arguable, but it's likely, it just pretty much has to be, that it's talking about regular work, but regular work which is done in devotion. But in a broad sense, we can take it to mean any sort of activity we do which is dedicated to Krishna. Because even if you're working, if you're a devotee, but you're working at some job, as long as you are using the money for Krishna consciousness, like even maintaining your family, is, usually the family will also be devotees, although not always. But you have a duty, even if they're not devotees, or some of them are not, you have a duty in Krishna consciousness to maintain them. So anyway, so the bottom line really is, when Krishna says one who works in devotion, although always working, such a man is never entangled, and such a woman is never entangled also. So it's referring to work done or activity done, which is being done in service to Krishna directly or indirectly, which could be like attending the Sunday program. Was it a nice program?
Yes, so much.
Could be attending the Sunday program. It could be, if you've got a family, it could be working in the factory at some job, but you are using all the income to help your family generally in Krishna consciousness, or even if they're not Krishna conscious, to help them in their lives as a duty you have to Krishna as a householder. Hare Krishna, devotees. That's all the questions we have. Thank you all. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.